Yeah. Well, we're getting ready to start a meeting. Oh, shoot. We're live on Facebook. I gotta go. Bye. You know,
Surprised you said shoot.
well, I
Me too, actually.
Shoot, dang it, we're live on Facebook. All right, it's been a crazy week, y'all. So we're going to kind of deep dive into some of the things that we've been working on. What is today even? Is it Friday or is it Monday?
It's Wednesday.
It's Wednesday, and yesterday didn't even happen.
I know.
No.
All right, so let's just kind of go through the loop. I know, Danielle, you were in Jacksonville this past week, and for July 4th, I was up in
Yes.
Washington, D.C. So, whoop, whoop, it was hot,
Yeah.
and I need a
It's
break
hot
for my
everywhere.
break. But what were some of your key takeaways that you've had since the holiday and since you've been back here in Central Florida?
Well, actually, while I was up in Jacksonville, I had a doctor's appointment.
What
and
kind?
An OBGYN appointment. I don't mind saying it. It was a women's wellness annual exam. And whenever I went, whenever I signed in, they said,
While you were on the table or while you were in the
oh
waiting
yeah,
room?
full nudity. And they made me, no, I'm just kidding. Whenever I checked in, they handed me this
It's a
clipboard.
weird video.
I don't know. They handed me a clipboard with this little iPad and like, oh, we need you to watch this video and sign it. So apparently the practice was recently bought by a larger company, and they made me watch this arbitration video that if I were to ever have some sort of malpractice issue, that I agree to do arbitration versus like take it
What
to
if you
court.
had said no?
I was wondering the same thing, and I didn't want it to be an issue. I'm like, okay, I'll watch it and sign it. And basically, the explanation in the video is that arbitration helps keep healthcare costs low for patients. That doctors are having to up prices or move out of Florida or abandon their practice because of the increased cost of going to court.
I
and
don't
all
want
that
you
stuff.
to tell me on video, but
Yeah.
I do want to know because I have a sense that that is a private equity firm that bought that practice,
Yeah,
and that sounds like something that a private equity company would do.
yeah. It was
And
just.
I feel like that might be crossing a line.
It was just
that's-
interesting as a patient. I'd never
Yeah,
had anything.
it
like
reminds
that.
me
It
of
was
like when reputation management was becoming
That's what
a
I was
thing.
thinking of too.
And
Yeah.
like some of the doctors that would have you sign something and say that you promise not to leave a negative
Right.
review.
Yeah,
Yeah, it reminds me of that kind of stuff.
yeah, and I know there was like some line that it was like in some cases you could still do court, so it was like a blurred line type
Mhm.
thing, but it was just really interesting. It was like, that is weird. From
Yeah,
a
that's
patient
very
perspective. I'm
odd.
not sure if
That's
anybody
very
else has
odd.
had that
Well, then,
happen.
if you think about it from like a patient experience standpoint too, like regardless of when you have to fill that stuff out, but just the fact that they're asking you to like watch this video, I mean, to me that almost like certainly puts the idea in my head like, what
Why are
happened
they
to
gonna
you
do
guys?
this?
Yeah.
And it was like a 5-minute video too. It wasn't like 30 seconds or something. It was like an in-depth.
Mhm.
That's really interesting. So offline, I'd like to know because I'd like
Yeah.
to know a little further of that. I mean, it shows how litigious of a society that we are that you would have to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, one of those areas. Remember when all those lawsuits were coming out for the ADA compliance
Mhm.
issues?
Yeah.
And we had to go back for all the clients and make sure that everything was ADA compliant. And now we've got a practice that we're working with. You guys probably know who I'm talking about, where the son is helping and
Mhm.
he's an attorney, and he wanted to know like dollar for dollar what we're doing for ADA compliance, and he
Yeah.
wanted our checklist and everything. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just the litigious world we live in
Yeah,
now.
and even
True.
the front desk girls, they were a little bit, like you could tell that
They're
they felt,
uncomfortable.
they
It's a
felt
private
weird.
equity thing.
They're like, oh, we have to do this. Can you watch this? And so it was like, it was just something I thought was
Interesting. All right.
interesting to just
Weird
bring
all
up.
around.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What else, Jeff?
In my MBA class, I just started an elective this summer. It's an event management online course. And something I thought was interesting was that kind of a new trend that businesses are kind of shifting how they're spending their marketing funds to focus more on events, both internally and externally. And so I thought that kind of translated to what we're doing with a lot of the employee experience stuff, where marketing dollars are going towards experiences or events or different ways to promote the practice versus like traditional marketing, like a billboard or a print ad or even digital ads.
I would say that's a little cyclical. Like
Mhm.
that has been the case 20 plus years ago. I remember like having, when I used to I worked for a Fortune 500 company, a big REIT, and we used to put our money into a lot of events. And I would constantly be going through sponsorship proposals to figure out what it is. But you're right, like the trend now is it's not just this external marketing, it's this internal marketing. And this week, one of the things that I've been like eyeball deep in is we've got a practice that's getting ready to go through our the communication across generations
Training.
online, on-demand training that we offer. And Corey and I were just meeting a little bit ago, just kind of like starting to spitball of what the internal marketing campaign is going to look like. And so heads up, we're having a meeting next week to really dive into this. So you'll need to make sure that your folks are ready and that we're all on the same page. But, you know, I think we're probably going to do the tokens of appreciation again. We talked about that they want to do a theme. So because it's generational, Corey came up with the idea of maybe looking at technology across generations. Why don't you explain that?
Yeah, so we were talking about how to communicate across generations. That's sort of the point of the whole on-demand course. So I was thinking, well, why don't we have some fun with that, and then we can look at just sort of how technology has evolved in the way that we communicate through generations. So like from a rotary phone to a brick cell phone to these lovely things that we have now to music. You can go from like an 8-track to a cassette to a CD to an MP3 player.
To a vinyl record.
Yeah.
And it's cyclical again because now vinyl's back.
Right.
And like it's really hard to get and everybody wants it.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, so the way that we communicate evolves and it changes across generations, which plays right into the content. So it's sort of hand in hand and allows us to have a little bit of fun.
So speaking of content and the trainings, so we've got our patient experience on-demand training and then the generational on-demand training. And I've been prepping for the new training coming in. So I've partnered with somebody who offers some patient experience training, and then she also has a company that did a survey of about 1,000 practice administrators, surveying practice administrators on what is important to them in a new hire. Like, so it would be, Danielle, you're the new hire, and I'm going to tell you, like, this is what practice managers are looking for in their next employee so that you can become the best employee you can be. So we're going to put that training out there. But then in the last couple of weeks, I've been doing a lot of deep diving on what our next training from scratch is going to be. And Harvard Business Review does like this thing every quarter or every month called the Big Idea. And the one, I'd already been like leaning towards this whole series of trainings on being part of a team or building great teams or leading great teams, things of that nature. So HBR did this whole series for their Big Idea. It's like 45 pages about being part of a team as the driver for engaging your employees. And so basically, like the gist of it, I think I told you about it because I really think you should read it. The gist of it is that you've got organizational charts across your organization, and you think that everybody is on just one team or they're part of a team, and you know then separately you're doing these engagement activities. But what HBR is saying is that the data suggests is that, yeah, Danielle, you're on this main team, but where you get the most engagement out of your job is when you have a side gig. So yeah, you're part of this main gig, this main team, but you also are part of the newsletter committee with this client over here, and you get satisfaction out of that newsletter committee because that team, you're counting on the person over here to your left to deliver something, and then you're also counting on that person over here is counting on you to deliver to them. So that's what creates true engagement, and that's how you use teams to build engagement. And so that'll probably be our next round of training, but that HBR series was fantastic this month, and it fits right in line with what we're seeing from a marketing standpoint with our practices, meaning that we have to really look at internal marketing as much as external marketing, and that's our patients and our employees.
I'd be interested too. So if you're like what you were saying, where you're dipping your toe into like other teams and you're building those relationships with, you're not siloed off, right?
Yep.
So if you're building a relationship with somebody over here, I wonder if that has an effect on retention too.
It does.
Okay.
The data is incredible, and all of it. I'll give you the articles. Like there's a handful. But the data backs all of it up.
Yeah.
And I think too, to our own organization and how we've all been together for a long time, and I think part of it is that we are a tight-knit team, but we have our hands in other things.
Yeah.
And you never know what it is that you're going to have when you come to work that day. Because yesterday I thought I was going down this one path, and hell, I fell off the wagon. I don't even know where I ended up. So that's what I have this week.
Yes.
So I've been working on client recaps for their probably about 10 days or so, it feels like, trying to get them done, but like you were just saying, sometimes you wake up, it's a different day. It just happens. So I'm working on client recaps, and what we're finding is we're going through. We actually just had a meeting yesterday where collectively, as a team, we were going through sort of like the top level analytics numbers, and it's interesting. So we want to do that one. So obviously we're all on the same page. We know kind of like what's going on and if there's trends developing. But what we were seeing is what's really cool is we've launched a bunch of websites recently for clients, and some of the ones that we did like 4 or 5 months ago, the organic search content that we've been writing and putting up, it's starting to hit. So you're seeing like year-over-year numbers for this website jump like 70%, and it's a direct result of that organic content. So that's always reassuring to see that we're moving in the right direction and we're delivering what we say we're going to deliver. And then when you see like the red numbers pop up, it's always interesting to see that too. It's like, what's happening? Is this something we need to be aware of? And then when you start to talk through it and you look at the data, you say, well, depending on where we're looking at this, did we spend a bunch more money last year? So we were just on the phone with a client earlier, and we saw like a 24% decrease.
How did he take that?
He was fine with it because we had an actual reason as to what had happened.
Yeah.
And we just told him that, last year we did this big Mother's Day promotion.
Spent like $2,000.
Yeah, exactly. And so we didn't do that this year. And then there's a direct correlation and causation that we didn't spend that money, numbers went down. So we spent the money, they'd be where they were.
How were his sales?
They were down a little bit, but again, because we were driving to a specific appointment.
And he probably noticed it, and he's like, what's going on? And we're like, well, you didn't spend the money.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so he wound up saving more money on the advertising, but obviously there's less visits, less conversions. But for that same client, organic traffic, again, the stuff you don't pay for, it was still up, I think, like 11%.
I think out of that exercise yesterday and the day before, one thing that really stood out to me is when we were looking at the metrics of measurables and conversions. And there was one in particular where the conversion numbers were down or they were different. And then we started talking about because they're using that
different software.
The software for scheduling appointments, that we can't get the conversion number from it. So then our measurement tactic changes. But then, we were like, well, we can't measure it, and we kind of threw our arms up in the air, and then after we dove into it a little bit more, we said, all right, we can't measure that, but maybe the definition of a conversion changes.
Right.
And I think that was a valuable exercise because it makes you look at things in a different way, and it's easy to say like, well, we can't do it, or it doesn't measure that way, or like impressions. Why are impressions through the roof, or why are they low? And I question why do we even measure impressions in AdWords? Because impressions are user driven.
Right. It's a vanity metric.
It's totally a vanity metric. So I think it's important, once a quarter like we do, to dive in and really look at what you're measuring. I think it's valuable to look year over year, but I think also for some of our clients, when we started looking at year to date, that told us whether we're on the right track or not.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say too that we always try and provide some sort of analysis or context to these things, and that can just be something to be aware of. If you have a website company or whatnot, and they just send you a report weekly or monthly, they just spit one out, and you look through the numbers and you say, oh, we're up, great. Oh, we're down, great.
But you don't have the true context.
Right, and you don't really know why. So just something to kind of be on the lookout for is, sometimes you might need to actually sit for a second, digest what you're looking at, and then figure out why things are trending either in the right direction, the wrong direction, or they're stagnant.
Yeah.
I think another takeaway from that exercise, from a social media standpoint,
say the same thing.
is what was performing, what has performed this year, and what hasn't performed, and what performed really well.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we sorted it by just organic engagement, it was always the stuff with staff or the doctors or a patient. The real personal in the moment posts always far exceeded any of the other posts, and organically as well.
Yeah, that's a great point. So those posts did really well from an organic reach and impression standpoint, engagement. So everyone that's a fan of that practice's social media loves that stuff.
Yep.
But then if you looked at the clicks, you'd say, oh my goodness, we're down 12%.
Yeah.
Well, that's because we didn't post as much content that included a link back to the website, but that's okay. Because look where we're making up this ground, people just aren't clicking on something.
I think that was an interesting thing that we saw by kind of looking at everything. Is why are the clicks, referral, it called? Referral click links from social so low, and it's because we have been pushing this organic, real content that you wouldn't say our staff's having a great Friday, here's a link to our website. It just doesn't make sense. So having that kind of
Yeah.
more fun social posts that you want to have.
Well, and I think it backs up some of the strategic changes we've been making this last year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we were finishing the ability case study that we did with their staff. I was working on that again this morning with Lawrence. And I think that's going to be a really strong piece when it comes out to lay out that policy.
Mm-hmm.
When I was talking to Bevins from Array, which is our podcast that's coming out tomorrow, when I was talking to Bevins last week about it, I told her about the ability case study.
Mhm.
They want to run the same contest
Oh, yeah,
for
I've
their
already put
practice.
the layout.
Everybody
Yeah.
should.
So like
Yeah.
it's that everybody should. And I think when you were talking with the doc today,
Mhm.
didn't you share with him that his engagement is down? And you know, what was kind of the conversation there?
They have an internal person that's going to be kind of coordinating the staff to get more in the moment photos, but he has kind of two service lines, and engagement was up in one of the service lines because those staff members had been sending content, and then it was down significantly in another service line because we weren't getting content for that service line. So it was kind of like, this one's up because you're doing kind of what we asked you to do, but this one's down because we're not doing what you asked. So
Absolutely.
it's kind of a good way to show, like, you're up here because good job, you're doing that, but you're down here because we didn't get that.
Well, and I think it goes to you can have an agency or a partner that you're working with, and we can only do so much, but our job is to teach you how to be successful too.
Yeah, and that was actually one thing that I wanted to mention. So what was interesting is when we said you were down over in this area, and we said, oh, maybe it's, you know, because he was trying to like incentivize his staff. We said, well, maybe it's the incentive that you're offering. And he said, no, it's me. I need to basically like lead them better and
Yeah.
get behind it. And
Yeah.
then if I show enthusiasm, I know that they're going to pick it up. And I
It's
thought
true.
that was awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that the we know this stuff intuitively, it just makes sense to us, but when we're looking at those numbers, it
Yeah.
made us better at even the doctor today. It made you better prepared to have that conversation
Absolutely.
with them.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So it was good stuff. Anybody got anything else?
I don't think so.
No, I'm ready to get the meeting started.
Yeah, so we've already been in here an hour. We got at least another 2 hours. We will see you next week here on our live Facebook page. And next time, if you have any comments or things you want to add, if you put it in there, we will answer your questions directly during the call. Thanks.